Hello, I'm John Eibner, the president of Christian Solidarity International. I'm honored to be among the distinguished contributors to this important Voices of Armenia conference. I must begin by thanking the Union of Journalists of Armenia and its talented and courageous president, Satik Seyranyan, for the invitation. I would also like to express my great regret in not being able to be with you in person. The Union of Journalists and each of its non-governmental members play a crucial role in preserving pluralistic society at a time when Armenia's democratic institutions are eroding, and as the state slides ever more deeply into the autocratic behavioral patterns that characterize its historical hostile neighbors, Turkey and Azerbaijan. Heading an independent, interconfessional, non-governmental organization dedicated to the promotion of religious freedom, I have naturally followed most closely the Armenian Prime Minister's orchestration of the persecution of the Armenian Apostolic Church, a sacred, nation-forming, nation-saving institution that has served as the principal bulwark of the Armenian nation through the many centuries of Armenian statelessness. But the abuse of power extends far beyond the persecution of the church. Other human rights defenders will, no doubt, address more than adequately other aspects of the government's departure from the rule of law and disrespect for fundamental human rights. I will state at the onset of this presentation that the Armenian Prime Minister, Nikol Pashinyan, is responsible for an illegal effort to overthrow the legitimate head of the global Armenian Apostolic Church, the Catholicos of all Armenians, Karakin II, and to place it under state control through a new Catholicos sanctioned by the Prime Minister himself. Since there is no consensus within the church for Pashinyan's attempted ecclesiastical coup, and of course much opposition to it, the Prime Minister has been obliged to achieve his goal by using the coercive means of the state. Short of murder, his methods are reminiscent of those used by the Bolsheviks to gain control over the church in the 1920s. The Prime Minister has subjected the Catholicos to a public smear campaign, claiming he is not the legitimate head of the church. He makes this claim on the grounds of the fabricated charge that his election by the Church's National Ecclesiastical Assembly in 1999 was somehow illegal. Pashinyan compounds this allegation of religious illegitimacy with the claim that the Catholicos is a Russian asset who reports daily to an intelligence officer in Russia and who heads a mysterious war party inside Armenia. As such, Pashinyan claims the Catholicos is a threat to Armenia's national security. To add insult to injury, Pashinyan accuses the Catholicos of sexual immorality. The detailed research of Robert Amsterdam and his team of lawyers has effectively discredited this far-fetched version of America's Russiagate conspiracy. Pashinyan's attempted ecclesiastical coup does not rest exclusively on rhetoric. The Catholicos has been indicted on the charge of obstructing justice for refusing a court order to reinstate a dismissed priest. The indictment prevents the Catholicos of all Armenians from traveling abroad to fulfill global responsibilities. As his title indicates, Karakin II is the Catholicos of all Armenians, wherever they are in the world. The church has more than twice as many adherents outside Armenia as inside the republic. Over 20 bishops and priests have been similarly indicted and have had their freedom restricted. What the state is doing to the church in Armenia is commonly called in the United States lawfare. That is to say, the abuse of the law to intimidate opponents. Some bishops loyal to the Catholicos have been imprisoned or placed under house arrest. The trumped-up charges have ranged from terrorism, as was in the case of the charismatic Archbishop Bagrat Galstanyan, or in the case of Archbishop Ashok Kachartrian, to planting marijuana joints in the backpack of an anti-Karakin protester over 8 years ago. The Center for Political Rights in Armenia has done an outstanding job documenting the illegal methods used in this anti-church lawfare. The persecution of the church has extended to the laity in the shape of the church's wealthiest and greatest living benefactor, Samvel Karapetyan. He too was arrested and incarcerated for having publicly indicated he would challenge the prime minister's persecution of the church. Moreover, his businesses have been nationalized. So strong is the support for Karapetyan in Armenian society that he has emerged as one of the strongest challengers to Pashinyan in next month's national elections, already substantially marred by interference of foreign powers, most openly by the European Union. Pashinyan has also sought to undermine the Catholicos by forming a committee of 10 co-opted bishops. The prime minister heads this uncanonical body, the purpose of which is ecclesiastical subversion. This tactic mirrors that used by the Bolsheviks in the 1920s to undermine the authority of the legitimate leadership of the church and its Catholicos, and they did so under the banner of a state-sponsored free church reform movement. The question must be asked, why is the Armenian Apostolic Church subjected to such persecution today? The definitive answer can only be delivered after a thorough search of archives that will not be accessible for decades, if ever. But it is certain that the answer is not to be found in the law, but in politics, and it is to be found outside, not inside, the borders of the Republic of Armenia. The fact is, Armenia continues to stand under the threat of renewed Turkish-Azerbaijani military aggression and other forms of state-sponsored violence and nonviolent hybrid warfare. The century-old process of denying the Armenian Christian nation political agency continues unabated. This was the joint Islamist Ottoman, neo-Ottoman, or not Ottoman, pan-Turkic goal that drove the violent ethno-religious cleansing of Armenian Christians from Anatolia, Nakhichevan, Somgid, Baku, and finally, only 3 years ago, Nagorno Karabakh. Pashinyan acknowledges this, claiming that an attack could come as early as September of this year. Political agency in the prevailing political cultures of Turkey and Azerbaijan continues to reside exclusively with Turkic and Muslim peoples. Having been defeated by Azerbaijan, supported by Turkey and Turkish-backed jihadists from Syria, Pashinyan is desperate to avoid another war with a Turkic Muslim power that reveals its intentions by openly calling the Republic of Armenia Western Azerbaijan, and pledging that the territory of today's Republic of Armenia will one day be reclaimed from its so-called Armenian occupiers. Among the Turkish-Azerbaijani conditions for a peace treaty is the removal of the Catholicos and the placement of the church under state control, as is the norm in both Turkey and Azerbaijan, and for that matter, in most authoritarian states. Catholicos Karakan II offends Ankara and Baku by publicly defending the rights of the ethno-religiously cleansed population of Nagorno Karabakh, including the Armenian hostages that continue to be incarcerated in Baku. He also offends by encouraging commemoration of the Armenian genocide. These are taboo in Turkey and Azerbaijan, both genocide-denying states. Pashinyan is prepared to meet these and all other conditions Turkey and Azerbaijan impose as the price of a capitulation treaty. His policy is one of appeasement, not peace through strength. Pashinyan is furthermore pressed to do so by the European Union and the United States. The primary interest of Washington and Brussels in Armenia is geopolitical. It is to remove Armenia from Russia's sphere of influence. Their solution is for Armenia to integrate into that of the Turkish-Azerbaijani condominium. We can see that much of the same process was applied to Syria, once a safe haven for Armenian Christians, victims of the genocide. As President Trump himself has confirmed with satisfaction, Syria has been restored to Turkey following the overthrow of the Assad dictatorship by Turkish and Western-backed jihadists, headed by the now president of Syria, Ahmed al-Shara. The geopolitical Western political goal, in the case of Syria, was also to deny space to Russia and Iranian adversaries. It is helpful to keep in mind the thinking of President Trump's property development friend and now special envoy, Tom Barak. Barak has described the states that emerged from the collapse of the Ottoman Empire as no more than tribes with flags and imposed borders, political entities that were never meant to be nation states. That, of course, includes the Republic of Armenia. Promotion of this big geopolitical shift was the primary purpose of the U.S. Vice President's visit to Armenian Azerbaijan last February, and now the presence in Yerevan of the leadership of the European Union and the European political community. The silence of Washington and Brussels about the persecution of the Armenian Apostolic Church and the other aspects of Armenia's democratic backsliding speaks volumes about their tacit backing for the Turkish-Azerbaijani condominium's strategic goal of incorporating Armenia into its emerging neo-Ottoman pan-Turkic bloc. Religious freedom and other fundamental human rights in Armenia today are being trumped by the geopolitical considerations of Ankara, Baku, Brussels, and Washington. The implications will be felt most acutely by the Armenians for whom the Republic of Armenia has been a safe haven. But they will also be, in time, painfully felt in Europe as the Turkish-Azerbaijani condominium continues to flex its growing muscle in the face of a Western world that has become increasingly dependent on it. Thank you very much for your attention, and I wish you all an impactful conference.